Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ETNA's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center in every industry and area that matters to you. A special show lined up for you tonight. 30 minutes of the biggest experts answering your questions that have been sent to us. Tonight we have Manish Bansal. He's the CEO of SME Value Advisors, as well as Prabhakar Dalal. He's the former ED of the Exim Bank, answering all of the questions a few of our viewers have sent in earlier. Take a look at some of the questions that they're answering tonight. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. And gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for taking the time out to address all of the questions that have come in. Let's kick tonight's show off with our first query. Rishabh Singh has sent us this email to say the government gives grants to various companies but not startups. For startups, we have very few venture capitalists. His question tonight to our experts: why doesn't the government have a body like a venture capitalist? And if there is one, how do we find out more about it? So the government on its part, of course, does have SIDBI, does have the Mudra loan scheme, but he's talking specifically about venture capitalists. So anything outside of just the funding, mentoring, etc., is that something that the government should also possibly look at?
So there are a lot of incubation centers, if you see, in various, for example, IITs and the IIMs of the world. And they are promoting that even in the other regional colleges. In addition, there are a lot of private so-called incubators or the accelerators. For example, Bombay Stock Exchange has a Bombay Stock Exchange Incubation Center. And so I know many, many more. So what is important for him is to stand up and figure out what are the incubation centers around and leverage upon their presence.
I think Rishabh Singh's presumption that government gives grants to companies but not to startups is not correct. Because for startup, I think there is a Startup India program is there. Under that, they give 3 years tax break and many other facilities they provide. So that presumption in the first place is not correct. Second point was regarding venture capital, whether the government has any venture capital. I think they operate through SIDBI, and SIDBI Venture Capital Fund Limited is there. Under that, various funds are there, and he can go through that and try and access, if he wants to have venture capital, only from the government agency.
Okay. That's in response to your question. Thank you very much for that. Quickly moving on to our next question. C. Saran has written in on our Facebook page to say Next Brain is a web and mobile apps development country. He says clients are not willing to pay for additional requirements. This is after the project has already kicked off. A majority of his customers, he says, come from India and the Middle East. Once we confirm the requirements and agreements, he says, they start the development of work. While they do a spring release, which I assume is a provisional sort of agreement they put together, they come up with new requirements, which is out of the agreement. In that case, the company needs to put additional manpower and will cost them additionally. And after the project release, it becomes very tough, whereas the customers are not willing to pay for this additional requirement that they're putting in. Isn't it simple that you just don't sort of then work with these clients, but for a small business, is it so clear?
I empathize with him because this is a very common problem.
Okay, all right.
Because everywhere when they undertake this kind of system integration and other projects, the requirements keep on adding. And therefore, I think the best way is to first define the scope of work very clearly in great detail in the first contract itself. And if there is substantial enhancement of the scope of work, where they have to employ additional manpower and have to spend money on that, they should have an amendatory agreement to the original contract. Okay. And they should say that we will provide these additional services and this is the fee for that. So there should be an agreement. If they don't do that and later on they feel that no, this was part of the contract that we had assigned to you, then payment becomes a problem.
Okay.
Very good point. And I think additional points could be, just don't give the final product before the payment happens. And there could be, the other measures like bank guarantee, or if you are talking about the export, then ECGC could be a very interesting organization to work with. Export Credit and Guarantee Corporations, that can help you secure your money when the projects are gone and the money doesn't come. You have very little, in the control.
Sure.
So these are the challenges.
ECGC won't pay if there is a contract dispute. ECGC provides cover for exports from India to other countries.
Sure. So, but in the cases where there is a delivery...
ensure that you don't give the final product till you get
Yeah,
the money in hand. So that is something that you could look at, Saran, and all the very best. That is an unfortunate situation for small businesses to be in. All right, let's quickly take in our next question. This one is coming to us from Bhavik Sarkeri. Bhavik has written in to us to say that Right is a handwriting franchise in India and abroad and provides training to students for handwriting improvement, speed writing, calligraphy, etc. Why does India focus so much on startups is his question. Doesn't that demotivate employees? Why the hype of creating something on your own? Hype and exaggeration of startups has undervalued itself now because of its overuse and overpromotion. Anyone with the simplest of ideas goes for funding, and it's all conquering the creativity of people. I would say that it's a very simplistic approach that he's taking, but that said, most of the big companies that we speak to here on Leaders of Tomorrow are all saying that everyone within their companies has ideas. If you don't want them to leave, we encourage employees within our large companies to think like startups and, you know, be able to work on their own ideas. Exactly. But what did you have to say to him?
He says, why does India focus so much on startups? Two very obvious reasons. One is that India is a very, densely populated country with lakhs of graduates coming out of colleges, and they need jobs. So startups, not only that they employ themselves, they also provide employment to other people also. And therefore, to address this big problem of job creation, startups are very necessary, and government and everybody is rightly promoting that. Second thing is, when you do startup, you develop entrepreneurship within the country. So for both the reasons, like employment as well as for entrepreneurship development, startups are very important part of the government ecosystem.
All right, that's in response to your question. So do look at how you can perhaps also look at encouraging your employees to think like startups. Time for one last query tonight. And this is a tweet that's coming to us from Vivek Shah. Vivek says that he runs and owns a company called Caperman Technologies. He says it's a creative and innovative mobile app development company. He wants to know, how do you sort right profiles from the plethora of fake ones which they get? What kind of efficient process can a company like his follow when it doesn't have a large budget on recruitment processes? Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're tying up with your online companies which provide you with this manpower, it's not going to be too much of a cost, and at the same time they will do their own vetting at their ends, right?
That's right, and generally the payment will be on success basis, you know, and they generally give you the 3 months or 6 months lead, saying if the guy leaves in the 6 months, we will replace. So all that happens. Sure. So he has to look at it. But one thing very clearly is that the cost of hiring, then training, then firing, and then replacing.
Sure.
And in addition, Sunanda, the cost of the opportunity, you know, which is lost in the transit is very large. So people have to focus upon hiring the right talent. And he should basically put a maybe dedicated guy within organization if it's a very critical so-called job profile, depending upon that. And as you rightly said, leverage upon the competence of the people who are external.
Vivek has a problem of plenty. He has got many applications and he has to go through the process of zeroing in on right people. So I think one is, of course, he should specify the requirements, what kind of people he wants, qualifications, experience. Either he can outsource it to some agency, or internally also he can do it. But if he has detailed job specifications in the advertisement, then number of applications will be less, and those will be the relevant applications for his kind of job profile. So that will help him.
We've seen a lot of commentary, of course, coming in on the new insolvency and bankruptcy code. It is going to change things for corporate India, particularly large businesses. But would you say that even small businesses could see some impact? And very quickly, what is going to be the change for small businesses?
Under IBC, either the financial creditor or the operating creditor can approach NCLT if the unit has not paid their dues. And therefore, for SME, it will be difficult. For example, if some supplier has not been paid because of some difficulties in the business, or some bank has not been paid, they can approach the NCLT for insolvency or bankruptcy. And if recently the government has promulgated an ordinance which says that the promoter cannot bid. Now, anybody can take a small unit for insolvency for non-payment of dues because of some business difficulties. And even his competitor can do that and can take over the business. So for SME, I think it will be very difficult if his business is taken away through these means. So if he is able to, I mean, he should be allowed to bid for his own unit. That is my view.
Okay, but in the long run, of course, it's going to simplify how the industry works. I mean, that's why the government has put this framework in place. So it is definitely good news for corporate India.
Yes, for large corporates, yes, because if those units who are willful defaulters or have siphoned of funds, and if they come again bidding for their own units, then government has done the right thing not to allow them to bid again. But for small units, sometimes it may be a genuine case where he has not been able to pay and he needs some more time. And because some competitor or supplier has gone for liquidation to NCLT, and he is losing his entire business which he might have built over a period of time. So from SME point of view, I think some
changes are required.
Exception should be given to SME. That's my view.
Time for a break. On the other side though, Manish Bansal as well as Prabhakar Dalal will continue answering your questions. Just stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight two experts answering some questions that our MSME viewers have sent to us. If you have any questions, you too can send them to us. In just a bit, we'll tell you how you can reach us as well. Sharda has written in to us to say that he's a startup software manufacturer who manufactures products and he wants to now export it. He wants to know marketing platform that he can get for his business. NASSCOM, of course, would be one easy avenue, but anything else that you all might be able to recommend for him?
Export marketing is different from domestic marketing because the geography and the regions are different. And he should first identify which markets he can export his software products to. Because there are developed markets like US, Europe, Japan, and there are emerging markets like Africa, Asia, Latin America. So you should know first the region. From region, he should break down into countries, which countries in that region he can export to, because if he is starting off, he can't export everywhere. He has to first zero in on region and then countries and then the clients. So for that, it's a very long-drawn process. He has to be in touch with the Indian embassies in those countries, chambers of commerce, their embassies in India. He should participate in Indian international exhibitions and seminars, or do some online marketing in the beginning, and he can export his products to foreign countries.
Sure.
Sunanda, I would think that, you know, if I don't know the size of the business, but I would essentially think if he's a product guy, maybe just focus upon the product, and for sales side, better tie up with some larger organizations in the country which are already in those sort of called export markets. Because by doing it, you know, he can leverage upon their existing presence, customer base, and faster reach at a much more economical sort of call, you know, the pricing. So, but he has to demonstrate that it will add value to those organizations and to their customers. So that's what I think he has to focus on.
Couple of options being given by experts for you tonight, Sharda. Thanks very much for that email. Quickly moving on to our next query. This is a tweet coming to us from Paresh Patel. He says they manufacture and supply children's wear, kids wear. He wants to know how to balance consistency of demand. And I presume when he says consistency of demand, there could be periods like the festive season, etc., which sees high demand, and therefore stocking for that and being able to balance it out through the year.
In garments business, it is always like that. For example, like you rightly said, you know, festive seasons like Christmas, Diwali, New Year, demand will be more. But if he has to spread out his sales throughout the year, then he can give discounts during off-season periods. He can have, like, you know, in regular communication with his clients. He can use loyalty points program, or he can send communication when date of birth is there of children. He can send some gift or some communication. So, but even after doing that, it is not possible that throughout 12 months the consistency of the sales will remain the same, because I have seen many garments businesses during festive season sales are more than in other period, but at the same time other periods he should not go dry and not be able to sell anything. So there are many methods of marketing.
Sure. So Paresh, that's in response to your question. Thanks very much for tweeting at us. Let's take in our next query. Savita Rao has sent us this question on our Facebook page to say that banks don't normally extend facilities to a new company. Most banks only want to fund companies with a 3-year track record. Not all new companies can get VC funding. It will help entrepreneurs and ultimately the economy and the country if banks extend credit facilities to new companies, of course, with due diligence. She's also saying there's a now established concept of CSR, which has created a good platform for building the nation through funds. If large corporates decide that a certain percentage of their goods and services would be towards and would be from startups, it would provide a good base to support new entrepreneurs. There's a slightly longish question, but to recap, 2 points to her question. One is the 3-year track record. Gentlemen, please help me understand if that's correct. And second, big picture question, saying like CSR, something that the government should put in place, where you say that you are mandatorily working with startups. They tried that, for instance, in the defense space, and that has, there's mixed responses on how that has really worked out.
Well, as far as banks are concerned, there is no requirement that the unit that they are financing must have 3 years track record, although it is desirable. So that presumption is not accurate. Second thing is about CSR. CSR activities are listed in Schedule 7 to the Companies Act 2013. It doesn't, this particular activity like procurement from startup is not covered in that. And also government cannot mandate, because there is a private sector. Even for government entities, they cannot do that. But there is a thought process underway in the government that for PSUs, they should procure a certain amount, or they should put it up on the website, and they should procure a certain amount from SMEs, MSMEs, and they can add startups also. So that is a thinking which I hope is implemented soon.
Sure.
It's a wonderful thought. I should really appreciate Savita's thought process, but it's like one of those wish lists. Every morning we get up and say, hey, I wish everyone was very, very kind, generous, sincere, honest, blah, blah, blah. So very noble thought, but difficult to actually execute.
Okay.
So I would essentially think, as Sir talked about, there are policy guidelines which encourage the companies to basically buy certain percentage from SMEs, and any startup will become the part of the SME anyway. So,
sure.
So they are not excluded. And from that perspective, this is the only limited policy initiative. Okay. Everything else is dependent upon the people, where they want to encourage.
All right, time for one last question then tonight, and this is coming to us from Heer Jagatia. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Heer. This question has come to us on our social media Facebook page to say that there are discount coupons and deals website which helps buyers to save money when they're buying from various e-commerce portals like Amazon, Flipkart, etc. Getting and retaining the right manpower, he says, is a major challenge for them. Labor shortage is a challenge, and they require skilled and semi-skilled labor. How do we get quality manpower? I would presume for a business like this, you need some very basic skill sets. It's not a highly sort of qualified person. Even for that, if they're not able to hire, then where do you think the problem possibly is?
Well, I think it's a question of matching demand and supply, because India is a large labor market and it's not difficult. Although, as you rightly mentioned, not great skills are required, so on-the-job training can be provided. And of course, country is facing this problem of skilled workers, skilled labor, and there is a dedicated Ministry of Skill Development, Entrepreneurship, National Skills Development Corporation, so that people are there, but they are not skilled enough for various industries. So that work is going on the one hand, On the other, like, the entrepreneurs or the manufacturing units or service units, they can themselves provide on-the-job training to people.
Sure.
Maybe leverage upon some manpower organizations. There are many people because we can't do everything ourselves. So better leverage upon those people and try to get the relevant people in.
Okay. Here, that's in response to your question. Gentlemen, we are out of time on this episode. Thank you both very much for coming down tonight.
Thank you.
That's our show tonight. Do remember that this is how you can reach us with any questions you may have for our experts. Our email ID, leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. On social media, I'm at Sunanda_J on Twitter, or LOT_ET Now is our official Twitter handle. On Facebook, we're at Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. You can also call us on that number you see on your screen if you have any questions for us. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.